$698,495.67.
And I'll second.
All right, are there any questions on the bills?
I didn't see anything that piqued my interest.
Okay. And none for you?
None, no.
All right, and I didn't have any questions. I appreciate, again, at the end of the reports, the out-of-budget items that are all listed in there. That makes it easy to see what's going on. So all those in favor of the approval of claims, say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Mr. Weaver, is there any other business for us today?
No, only thing, and I guess I'd bring this up with council next week, is or tomorrow, not next week, if you guys are fine with that last Tuesday of the month, since we've had just conflicts with trying to work out the budget work session that week of the 19th. We've had people with conflicts on Wednesday and Thursday, so we don't really have much options then. Just make it the last Tuesday of the month for budget work session.
Okay. All right, if there's no other business, then meeting adjourned.
That'll work.
And lead us in the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the Administrative Secretary please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Richgard.
Here.
Councilman Martin Canan.
Here.
Councilman Jonathan Fabian.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilman Todd Smith.
Here.
Councilwoman Mary Ellen Christensen.
Present.
Mayor Ron Warpness.
And I am present. Okay. I declare that we have a quorum this evening. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda at this time.
Your Honor, I would move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Communications from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is already on the agenda will be given an opportunity to address the council later on. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record.
I think you all know who I am,
Davis.
Jim Davis, Chamber of Commerce. I just brought out the new, I put it at your stations there, the new Yellowstone Journal, 99 Things to Do in Yellowstone Park. And we've advertised in this again this year, and if you open to where I put this insert in that gives the information on the distribution of this particular periodical, you can see our ad. It's not a whole lot different than what it has been in the past, but if you flip it over one page, the Wind River Visitors Council's ads there, and then there's also an article about Wind River Country, and if you go back to the ad, there's an article about the Wind River Casino. So we're very, very well represented in this periodical this time. And as you can see from the printout that I gave you, there's 250,000 copies of this distributed around to all 50 states and Canada. 875,000 readers, 50,000 copies for sale at $5.99 in newsstands around the country, in 5,000 retail locations. Sales date from April to September, and 200,000 copies are distributed by Certified Folder, who they're the company that fills all these racks you see around that have all kinds of literature in them. And we're already starting to get requests for information from this article. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention and see if you had any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Three full pages, beautiful color pictures in this kind of a publication is a great coup. Yeah. Good job.
Worked out real well.
Yeah, it really did. It looks beautiful. Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the council at this time? Okay. Would the Administrative Secretary please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, April 15th, 2014, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, May 5th, 2014, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations for May 5th, 2014. And the City Clerk's Office received a catering permit application for La Pierre on June 6, 2014 for the Fremont County Leadership graduation at the Fremont Center from 5 p.m. to 12 a.m.
Your Honor,
Okay, yes.
it's the recommendation of the Finance Committee for the approval of claims to be paid in the amount of $273,657.91. Manual checks in the amount of $890.28. Checks written for payroll liabilities for April 3rd, 2014 and April 18th, 2014 in the amount of $423,947.48 for a total of $698,495.67.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
Your Honor, I'd make the motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Motion carries. Okay, at this time, we have a mayor's proclamation, Building Safety Month, May 2014. I never realized how many proclamations the mayor has until I got in. So anyway, bear with me. This is Building Safety Month, and this is very important, as we all know that in our community that we have safe buildings, and so this is entirely appropriate. And I don't mean to make light of it at all, but I know you get tired of my reading various things, but at any rate, whereas the safety of our citizens is of utmost importance both in the homes where they live and raise future generations, as well as in the buildings where they learn, work, worship, and play, and whereas our city's continuing efforts to address the critical issues of safety, energy efficiency, and building resilience allow the citizens of Riverton to enjoy the comfort of structures that are safe and sound, and whereas building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, laborers, and others in the construction industry work year-round with Riverton citizens to ensure the safe construction of buildings, and whereas building safety codes provide safeguards to protect the public from natural disasters such as snowstorms, tornadoes, fires, and earthquakes, and whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown guardians of public safety, our local code officials, who are dedicated to achieving safe, efficient, and livable buildings. And whereas this year's theme, Building Safety, Maximizing Resilience, Minimizing Risks, encourages all Americans to become more aware of the importance of building a safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, backyard safety, energy efficiency, and new technologies in the construction industry. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, Americans are asked to consider projects to improve building safety and sustainability at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments in protecting lives and property. Therefore, I, Ronald O. Warpness, Mayor of the City of Riverton, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2014 as Building Safety Month in Riverton, Wyoming. In witness hereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the Great Seal of the City of Riverton, Wyoming, to be affixed this 6th day of May 2014. Okay, thank you. I know our building department spends an awful lot of time in that area, and I'm just very proud of the work that they do, making sure that we do have a safe community. And excuse me. Okay, agenda item number 9. Airport Cafe recommendation, Fulmer's Fat Boy Diner. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. In March of 2014, the Airport Cafe closed its doors and terminated their lease with the city. Once we had confirmation of that termination, staff started to advertise and solicit interested parties to operate the Airport Cafe. The city received 4 proposals from Ray Nimmo, Pepe's Tacos, The Freezer, and Fulmer's Fat Boy Diner. A committee was selected made up of Paul Griffin, Courtney Bolander, Gloria Hardman, and myself. The committee narrowed the selection from 4 to 2, and then we conducted interviews on the 2 top candidates, and it was voted unanimously that Fulmer's Fat Boy Diner fits the needs and the best for the airport. Bob and Patty Fulmer are natives to Riverton and have established a well-run business in Riverton and Shoshone. In their packet they submitted to the city, they stated, the city of Riverton has a need to establish and provide a healthy, customer-worthy place where local and visiting guests can dine at the airport. It is our intent to show you that Fat Boys can establish a fine dining experience that the city will be proud of. And so we sat down with Patty on Monday, and we worked out a lease and agreement, which I forwarded to you earlier today. We have a few things we still have to do up there. We're repainting it. We're putting up some chair rails around the side because those were worn down actually through the sheetrock there. And then we got a company coming in doing some industrial cleaning on a lot of the ovens that are just kind of pretty thick in grease. We anticipate it'll be ready on the 15th. Patty would like to get open on the 17th. That's why we're pushing the agreement through on this meeting instead of our next meeting, so she can be open. Just a few things to point out in the lease agreement. The term is for 1 year and an option to renew it if agreed upon by both parties. The cafe hours are set according to the flight schedules, because obviously the main point of the Airport Cafe is to serve the flying public, and that's why it's up there. 3, the city is making sure that all the equipment works, and therefore the leasee shall maintain and repair all the equipment. So right now we're going to make sure everything works, and then it'll be the responsibility of the leasee from there on to have any repairs done to the equipment. The rent is being done a little bit differently than we've done in the past. Instead of having a flat rate, the rent shall be 2.5% of the monthly gross sales, with a minimum of $300 for the first 2 months. That means June and July, to help them get started. And then in August, it would go up to a minimum of $500. And then there would be a maximum, meaning it wouldn't exceed $1,500. And on top of that, there's utility rates are set for $800 a month. Since we can't separate the utilities up there, they're all part of the airport up there. We've worked that out, and that will cover our utility costs. I mean, we actually found out that with our prior lease agreement, we probably were barely breaking even with what we were getting. There's also a default addendum that was attached to the lease that we haven't had in the past, and this is really to help cover us if they fail to pay their rent or they vacate or abandon the premises without notice, and that way we can move forward. So staff's recommending that we approve this airport lease with Fulmer's Fat Boy and have them start up on May 17th.
Okay, thank you. The chair would entertain a motion regarding the staff recommendation for the Airport Cafe.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? I would just like to ask, you mentioned that the times of their opening is limited by the flights. That would be the minimum, is my understanding. That's right. Okay. They can be open as much as they choose to be if they feel that they can grow the business up there.
Your Honor, yeah, and that's right. If you look under the cafe hours, it says leases shall maintain at a minimum the following cafe hours. Okay. So if they want to open at 5, that's fine. Good. We just have certain hours we got to cover. So when the flights come from Denver, that we have something for them to eat.
Sure, sure. Okay. 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 Is there any other comments anyone would like to? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mary Ellen. I almost forget that you're with us this evening. Councilman Christensen is in Key Largo, and tough life is all I can figure. So. Agenda item number 10 is the Forest Committee recommendation, the bid on the major patching project. Interim Public Service Director report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Fix Our Roads Citizens Committee, otherwise known as FORCE, has taken a unique approach to utilizing the 1 cent funds. Instead of focusing on a particular road or neighborhood, they're focusing on what type of repairs will get the most bang for the buck. They wanted to look at citywide instead of just at a specific neighborhood. The discussions at the Force Committee have centered on fixing the curb and gutter first, and that will take care of the water infiltrating into the subgrade, which then causes pavement damage. We recently awarded that project, and they should be getting started this week. And because of that, the Force Committee would like to go next to repairing some of the damaged pavements that's around those areas of concrete. So what I did is I looked at the pavement that has severe distress that were greater than a 10-foot by 10-foot area, but less than the entire width of the road. That'll allow the equipment to get in there and compact the subgrade properly. The streets that are focused on are the same ones of Schedule 1 and 2 for the miscellaneous concrete repair project. Once these areas are patched, the next step would then be to overlay the entire street this fall. On April 14th, 2014, the Force recommended to the Council that the major patching project be advertised for bid, and this project is estimated to be about $250,000. Currently, the 1 cent fund is estimated at $1,722,832.23, and after subtracting all of the currently committed projects, the balance is $329,978.23. Currently, the city is receiving an average of $150,000 per month in revenue on the 1 cent. The staff is just recommending that you accept their recommendation.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion regarding the Force Committee recommendation.
Your Honor, I would move to accept the Force Committee's recommendation to advertise for the major patching project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Force Committee recommendation. Is there a discussion?
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Guard.
we're just taking this to bid, correct, for the 10 by 10 patching?
Correct.
And so we're hoping that it's going to stay under the 329,
Correct, Your Honor.
and we'll get that done in this season.
Correct.
Super. Sounds great to me. Appreciate it.
And so by taking the action in this sequence, it will protect the roads that are coming apart now. That certainly makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate the effort of the Force Committee. They've just done an outstanding job, I think, in grabbing hold of it and really doing it just an outstanding job. I'm very proud of them for it. So. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Okay, agenda item number 11, consideration of farmers market location. The chair would entertain a motion to remove this item from the table.
Your Honor, I would move to remove the item from the table.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Okay, City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor, we've had quite a bit of discussion about this. The staff report you have in front of me or in front of you is the recommendation of staff that we presented at the last council meeting before it got tabled. One additional one that was added at the end, and the reason for tabling it was to look at the rails to trails option, which is in back of City Hall. And the way that would work is the parking lot in back of City Hall would be used for the main parking area for the people coming to the market, and Mr. Hammer's vacant parcel there that's kind of the dirt lot would be the overflow, and then the participants that are trying to sell goods would drive off of Pershing onto the rails to trails, and they would set up along rails to trails in back of Veterans Park there. Bathrooms would have to be accessed in the front of City Hall, so there would be a little bit of walking. There is some discussion regarding the use of the trail and the fact there would be a lot of cars, trucks driving over that and not built to that type of compaction, and afraid that it may break up if a whole bunch of cars are going over that. There was other concerns that I had heard that it's in Veterans Park, it's kind of a memorial. There's maybe issues with that where people are lounging around on memorial type things. So there's a couple different options we put on here as staff. City Park, the parking lot between Broadway and Northeast, which is right in back of Kusel's there. The 422 East Main, which is the old Daisy Cleaners, the lot downtown that the city owns. And then the Rails to Trails option. All those have, through the discussion we've had, all of them kind of have pros and cons. There's really not a perfect solution in everybody's eyes of how that's going to work, but the idea is to get this approved, and at least that Sherry Shelley and her group can actually start a farmer's market. They'd like to start that fairly soon, and so we need a location for them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weaver. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion regarding the location of the farmer's market.
Point of order, Your Honor.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, Councilman Christensen.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to have the farmer's market at 422 East Main.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order.
Yes.
I believe that before this was tabled, the motion was already made and seconded to put it at City Park, and then it was ultimately tabled, so that motion should still stand in effect right now.
Is that correct?
Your Honor, that's not my recollection, but I'm not for sure. I thought the table occurred before the motion was made, but
Your Honor, that's what I thought, but is there a way to check that?
Here we go.
I don't know that it
Your Honor, let me read from the minutes here. Nope, you're right. Councilmember Fabian moved and seconded by Councilman Guard to locate the farmer's market at City Park for the next 3 years.
Okay. Okay. So the motion that we have on the table at this time, or on the agenda, is to move the market to the park. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Your Honor.
Did you understand that, Councilman Christensen?
Yes, I sure did. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Could we
Councilman Fabian.
Could we bring Sherry Shelley up and just take a minute to hit on a couple of the merits of this recommendation, or
yes,
whatever?
this is the time to have that discussion. So thank you, Sherry, for being here.
Thank you.
I guess my question for you, Sherry, is initially when we talked with you guys, it seemed like there was a feeling that the City Park location was going to maybe even be your top choice, and now it seems like we've gone through 2 or 3 iterations, and nobody seems to know where they really want this to end up. And I mean, I as a council member can think of a lot of positives of having it at City Park, and I know any of the sites have some negatives, and City Park is no exception to that. And I mean, I certainly don't want to force something down the throat of the farmers market that they don't want on the one hand, but I guess I just, to me, the argument seemed to be that you were likely to get displaced from City Park by the construction, and yet now we're looking at 422 East Main, which I personally think could very easily get displaced as soon, if not sooner, than the city park location. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out where your group is coming from.
Well, I appreciate those thoughts, and I certainly do agree with you. It's been a pretty vacillating topic from everybody's perspective. Closer examination of the park seemed to us to indicate an access problem. The biggest issue with it is access by the buying customers. And the whole point of the farmers market is to get the people who want to buy together with the people who have produced the foods to buy. Bathrooms are nice, grass is nice, all these other things are nice, but the big thing is to get people together in a way that they can conduct business. Because of the way, our city park was built in the early 1900s when people didn't own, everybody didn't have a different vehicle. There's very little off-street parking in our city park. The parking that people would typically use would actually be used by the vendors of the market, meaning that customers coming would be parking off in the neighborhoods somewhere. And because of the construction on the south end of the park and the need for people to drive clear around the park, if not several blocks out from around the park to get to it, seemed to us to make it really hard for people to access City Park as it is now, with the construction project that's already going on Federal, combined with the future need for it. But it is certainly true that we've sort of given up the hope of finding a permanent sort of location anytime in the near future, not knowing what else may present itself. The park has the drawback of not being handicapped or wheelchair accessible. The sidewalk that is along the north side of the park is really narrow. It's really old. It's overgrown with grass pretty seriously, and it's bumpy and fairly decayed. So if pickups back up against it and tables set up on the far side of it, on the grass side, it leaves a really narrow space for people to walk. And then it's not a very easily walked space without, just because of the bump in the grass along the edge of it. The street closure would prevent people from being able to get to us without going either a block earlier and just kind of circling to get back in to figure out a place to park where they're not blocking somebody's driveway, or being a kind of a hike to get over and then to carry their purchases back to their vehicles. I think we really feel that in the future, in the long-term future, the city park is the best place for us if we can resolve or find some way to have better off-street parking there. But right now, lacking that and the distance it is from kind of the core where people can get to, we just have continued to try to find alternate spots. Does that help at all, Jonathan? No.
Thank you. It does.
It's definitely difficult, and our group is more of the customers than vendors have expressed concern to me about getting to it if it's a city park. It isn't. Vendors are basically kind of all. A lot of them just feel like wherever it is, we can figure out some way to make it work, and they'll adapt or adjust or whatever needs to happen. But it is a really a growing event, and it kind of just needs space for people to park and space for people to pull pickups in and move around, which was the issue that eventually out back of City Hall looked like it was going to be a problem too.
Sorry not to monopolize, sure, but I did have one other question. Do you think that the 422 property can really do a better job of housing the vendors and dealing with the parking public any better than City Park can? Because I personally don't see how you're going to put all your vendors in there and not have people parking 2 and 3 blocks away.
Because we wouldn't be blocking a street, that kind of helps to have an easier flow of traffic around us. It will certainly be crowded at the peak of the market, the 422 East Main location. We have a lot of vendors that come at the peak, roughly 40. I mean, 40 was our peak last year. It will probably be more than that this year. Making everybody squeeze in there and fit is likely to be a challenge. But it keeps us downtown, which was one of our original hopes, was that we could help bring more people and have more foot traffic and more energy in the downtown area. It's a block away from where we started out, but that's not a significant difference.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilman Canaan.
Ma'am, I guess my question is, and I tie on to that, when you talk about your larger trucks coming in, to that small area, what went wrong with the north end of that parking lot behind Kusel's? I mean, to me, that seems like it has more than adequate parking, not only for your vendors, your larger trucks, your customers. I mean, it's a hard surface if you're concerned about your handicapped individuals and wheelchairs and walkers. What's wrong with that area?
Nothing from our perspective. The general perception that I've gotten from visiting with city folks is that there's a longer history of people parking kind of permanently, businesses utilizing the back of that parking lot, than the 422 East Main is sort of a recently adopted informal parking lot, and the perception has been that it would be easier to ask those folks to move their vehicles on Wednesday afternoons than to clear out some of the fairly established parking that is currently going on in the back of the lot behind Kusel's. We're fine with that lot.
I mean, I guess in my thing, I realize it would take some time for people to get used to the idea that, that we don't want them parking there from a certain time to a certain time, but I certainly think that, that we can educate people, granted you may have a few people that, may have a vehicle in there and may need to, want to move that, and I definitely think the farmer's market can make allowance to say, if I show up after you've started and say, well, I just got out of work and I want to get out of here, I think that ought to be able to make that happen, that we don't block someone's car in. But I just think I kind of agree with Council Fabian about 422 when you start talking about larger trucks, that eventually we're going to wind up having to block that street off to accommodate your vehicles, and we're going to be back into the same situation that we are now.
With the sort of exception that it's a smaller, less used street than Broadway. That was kind of a big deal with Broadway. But we actually don't have any problem at all with being, that was the original place we came and asked for when we started 2 years ago, was that parking lot behind Kusel's. It didn't ever really cross our minds to request or occur to us that would be possible, to request a street. The council proposed the street as an alternate to requesting the businesses that are accustomed to using that parking area. It's really not people so much that would be parked in there for a temporary shopping foray into the community, as much as the entities that park there on a long-term parking basis. Some of the vehicles don't move for weeks at a time. And working around that would be problematic. We'd need to ask those folks or somehow encourage them to relocate their vehicles every Wednesday.
Well, I guess my comment would be, if they leave their vehicles parked there for weeks at a time, then having a farmer's market around that parked vehicle for a couple of hours is not going to be a great handicap on either the farmer's market or that vehicle.
Only in that there's a bunch of them. that park there pretty regularly. But
That's a pretty good sized parking lot, though. I
Yeah.
mean, again, I would think that we, the market ought to be able to make accommodations for those
well, we could
vehicles.
certainly try. If that's your wish, we can certainly try that.
Any other comments? Yes.
Your Honor. Your Honor. Hello?
Just a second, Kyle. Mary Ellen, just a moment. We'll come to you in just a moment. Okay.
I have a problem with that. That's called abandonment. That's our city parking lot, and for somebody to be parking there 2 weeks at a time, not moving it, excuse me, but that's public parking.
I agree. Yes. I'm sorry, Councilman Christensen. Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. I just want to make sure I understand this. Having the city or the farmers market in the city parking lot. The only concern I have about that is those vehicles parked in there. If I happen to walk by there every day, they are dispersed throughout the whole parking lot. So there's little sections of little companies that are in that. I mean, I'll say that I prefer it on Broadway, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But I think it's fine where it's at. But I just worry about moving all those company vehicles or having the farmers market around those company vehicles.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments?
Your Honor?
Yes.
I just wanted to comment a little bit about that parking lot. It's my understanding is that parking lot was built as didn't businesses pay to put that together, and that's where they are parking their vehicles. The chief actually went around to each of these businesses and asked them if they would consider moving their vehicles, and we only had one that actually took them up on the offer. The rest just didn't say much, or they didn't do anything. So a lot of them feel like they paid into that. They paid it with their own money to park there. We have no city ordinances that prohibits them from doing that. That's the other issue. So
Yes, we do.
not in the city parking lot. Now there may be on the street, that's a different thing. But in a parking lot, we don't have any signs that say no overnight parking. Because the issue with overnight is you've got the Seratoma that lives up there. All those people park in that parking lot, and they live upstairs in those apartment complexes. The Sorrento trucks, they're down there all the time, even during the day. There's trailers that are parked in there, and that was our only concern, is that when the farmers market got there and they have all these cars, and then we're trying to tow them out of there, and they're like, well, what have we done wrong here? And it was problematic in the fact that it may be a big ordeal every Wednesday to have that happen. That was the only reason staff had concerns with that location.
But on the east side, not the west side, on the east side, that's vacant. On the west side is where the major parking is occurring. That's where Seratoma parks.
Yeah.
And I assumed that we were talking about the east side, which is right behind Kusel's.
Yes.
Am I wrong?
Well, I think they were talking about the whole lot, but it could be on the east side.
Do you envision that it would be greater than that back part?
We had when we looked at that, we figured that we could easily fit the market into from the west to the east on the north side of the lot, about 2 to 3 parking layers deep. There's a single row of cars on the north border, then there's a space, and then a double row of cars parking in the middle, kind of. And if we could have that much space, we could easily accommodate the market. and we were really distinctly leaving the area where the Sertoma folks park their vehicles, because that seems very reasonable that they need a place to park when they live there.
Your Honor?
Yes, Councilman Fabian.
Do you feel like through a little bit of goodwill and maybe talking to some of the folks that perhaps are parked in that area that have company vehicles, that you might be able to get them to move their vehicle over to the opposite edge of the lot or something? I mean, do you think it would even, I mean, do you feel like there's enough open space that with talking to a few people, you could get it freed up to the point that it would be usable?
It would just so much depend upon their reactions. I am certainly willing to go and talk to Wyoming.com, which is the parent company of all the Sorrento and the Contact and the Wyoming.com vehicles there. It'll just depend on what their reactions are, I guess, really. I would never have guessed that we would run into the challenges that we've had up to this point where we are. So I'm kind of not sure how people are going to react anymore to anything.
Can you work around them, do you think? I mean, do you think it would be viable if they won't move? Is there enough room there to work around
initially them? We can. We have when the market starts out, it's 15 or 20 people, 15 or 20 vendors early in the season. It's when it grows and gets bigger, it might be necessary to flow over into Fremont. I don't know if that would be feasible or doable if we can't get people to move their trucks and trailers out. That back row on the north side of that lot is pretty solidly parked much of the time.
Your Honor?
Yes, Councilman Garden.
I was somewhat encouraged from our last conversation, because I was going to go to bat for you. I see that the skaters also want to use the park for a billboard area. There's some negative out there that don't want to use that. I actually think it's a good spot for that. And there's some other things that addresses. And so I think there's some things that we can do to accommodate. It makes no sense to me that when we block off Broadway, where we can't park on Broadway, and then we don't seem to have any problem with our people trying to find parking spots on Main Street and in the interior of the city. What the problem with parking in the interior of the city is it's grandfathered. We can't assign any parking, and we can get those blocks, but I believe it's through 7th Street and clear up to 1st Street. It's all grandfathered. And so people that have apartments on Main Street, which there's a number of those, including Sertoma, have to have a place to park off street, not on Main Street, not on the side streets. And so they kind of feel like that's their location. And the way that did come about was it was a tax passed on all of those businesses. We paid that when we owned 6th and Fremont location, and those funds did go to purchase and to maintain that park. That parking lot does need some regulations, because the long-term parking is out of control. Nobody knows the regulations, and there are no regulations. And so it doesn't matter who parks there or how long they stay or anything of that nature. With your last comment that you'd like to use the north side from the west to the east, maybe we could get busy and assign some parking through there and move everybody into the buildings and get a strip through there that would accommodate the farmers market for parking. Currently, that's the chosen spot to overnight park, is right in those spaces. So we would have to get some movement there. And I honestly do believe it could be a mandate from the council that the parking is now such and such. It's even been suggested to me over the time I've been on the council that there ought to be a fee to park in that location. So I think that's an old question. Back to City Park, I still struggle with the fact that City Park, when you bring it up on the maps, is enormously larger than 442's parking ability. But we're talking about parking. We can't, people that are parking and coming to the event have to park on side streets, even at Broadway location where you prefer it.
They also park in that parking lot that we were just,
that is a great
in between the permanently parked vehicles there.
I agree with you. That is a really great blessing if they park there and come to the farm.
Yeah.
Or off street, and that works. And so that helps. But when we move to 422, we don't have anything other than the streets to park on.
That's true.
And City Park is 3 times the side street ability to park on than any of the blocks interiorly blocks on Main Street. If you just measure them out, if you park on, there's 3 sides of City Park that we can park on. We can't park on Federal, but we can park on 3 sides.
Right.
Plus, City Park does have a parking lot, a fairly nice parking lot. And so it does have bathrooms, and I was going to make the proposal that we do go back and get a unified banner that we could put at the end of Main Street that would advertise events that are happening in the city of Riverton, and put the farmers market up there on that, and try to do everything we can to improve that situation. And so I don't know where, I'm kind of frustrated to help you from this point. If you want 222, or 422, I'm all for it. You know, let's get over it and go and see if it works. But I think it is more congested than any of the parking areas that we're talking about. And the parking public that you're concerned with are going to have to park on the side streets no differently than they would at City Park.
I agree. I guess somehow I've been picturing it as, you know, if Fremont along City Park is blocked with vendors, then that means people need to go clear to 10th or on the, whatever it is,
Washington.
10th or 11th. What's that?
Washington would be the opposite street.
Right.
And then
Which
10th,
is a long trek if you're carrying bags of
groceries.
big, heavy, squashes or cucumbers or tomatoes or whatever.
But if we keep that one lane open, you could drive right by and pick up your produce and as you leave the market. So,
Coming from the east driving west, is that the concept there?
well, I just want to make it so it
That's
works
true.
for you.
Yeah.
And so I do believe it has, if you logically look at the parking, there's more parking at City Park than there is on the interior of the city, interior blocks, especially if we're not blocking off a street. And so, but if you want to try 422, I'm all for it. So,
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilman Guard. I guess I'll throw out a couple comments here and then we can see which direction we want to go. I've always leaned toward the farmer's market at its present location, as the intent of it was to try to stimulate activity downtown, for our businesses downtown in that area. And I think anything that we do to move away from that is not what the original intent of it was, at least in my mind. And I realize I miss intents of different things, and each of us have different agendas, I suppose. But the other thing is that I respect you and your group, and you've looked at this long and hard and weighed all of the issues and have gone through trial by fire, I think, and dealing with it for these past summers and having to deal with all of the different issues that you have, and you're still foraging forward. So I commend you for that. And so my inclination is to go with your recommendation of what you think best meets your needs. It kind of surprised me when you suggested that you weren't going to be closing off 5th Street in front of Bomber's Bar there. That I kind of thought with the use of 422 that would be one of the caveats that you would have to close off that street. And so it surprised me a little bit that that's not what you're thinking of here. Regarding the parking lot in back of Kusel's, I've always felt that this discussion, excuse me, is an opportunity for us to take some of the action that Councilman Larson is talking about to get rid of this long-term parking in that city parking lot. That was never the intent, as I recall, and when that was paid for by businesses, that's been years and years and years ago. I think I was in high school when that happened. You know, that was a long time ago, let me tell you. You know, and so the businesses now that are reaping the benefit of businesses that paid for that parking lot, they didn't pay anything for it. You know, and if we decide that we want to have parking permits for people that are living in the Teton Hotel and they can park there, you know, overnight and long term, fine, I have no problem with that. But to think that you can have a business that uses that as their permanent parking spot, that is just completely foreign to me. I've purchased a parking lot, and let me tell you, it is not cheap. And so I apologize for my cough this evening. But I would think that the city parking lot on the north side where the light poles are, if we could clean that out, that would give us plenty of room in there to handle that. But there's a lot of possibilities, I guess, and so I'm a little bit like Councilman Guard. I'm willing to go with 422. I'm willing to go with the city parking lot. I would have a hard time voting for the park, just because I'm not sure that that's solving a lot of our problems, and it's moving away from the downtown area, which, you know, in my mind again was the original intent. So
which?
Yes, Councilman. Okay.
Your Honor. So which of the, I mean, if you were picking between the city parking lot and 422, which one would you pick?
My group.
All right. Then I would propose an amendment to the motion on the floor that the farmers market be held at 422 East Main Street for, I'm going to say 1 year, and we'll see where it's at.
I'd second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to move the farmers market to 422 East Main. Is there further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, mayor votes aye. And the motion carries. Thank you. We've finally got a little direction for you.
We have to now vote on the amended motion because.
Okay. Do we have a motion on the amended motion?
We just voted to amend the motion to 422. Now we have to vote on that. Sorry.
Okay. All those in favor of the amended motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay. Mayor votes aye on the amended motion. Mayor, and the motion carries. Okay. Agenda item number 12 is the Central Wyoming Skateboard Association update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, City Council, this is Jarrell Brown. He's passing out some letters that we've been given this week. I'm not sure if they were emailed to you or not as part of the presentation, but we'll go over those here in a second.
Mayors, members of the City Council, I'm Chris McNeil with the CWSA. Nice to see you again. It's been a while. I've been working with the Red Cross, and I'm doing really pretty good. Been very rewarding. Matt and I will be presenting this presentation, and before we get started, I really would like to say kudos to the young men, young women of CWSA, as they did a wonderful job this last year with this first bout of fundraising. I just want to say, just hang in there. So, also I would like to thank the city for this last November 15th, 2013, for putting in a line item for funds for the skate park. We really are grateful for that. Matt's going to be with me today. We're going to be kind of in and out on this. If you have anything to say, Matt, go ahead.
Thanks.
You want to announce who you are?
Yeah, Matt Wright, resident of Riverton and co-chair of the CWSA. And it's been a rewarding experience so far, working with these young men and a couple women. And thanks for your time tonight.
Yes, thank you for having us here today. I will go pretty quick with this. We don't want to spend too much of your time. We want to discuss basically 3 topics tonight. The construction date of the skate park that we've set as an association, the thermometer fundraising sign, which turned out really nice. We want to talk about that, and then we feel like we need to, as an association, revisit the skate park location. Construction date we set for June 15th, 2015. Tentatively for that date, we want to start then because it takes around 13 to 15 weeks to complete a skate park. Once construction starts, it would be a good time to start then. Dreamland Skate Parks has been awarded the honor of building the skate park. We had several in mind. We had Native Skate Parks out Park, American Ramp Company had some bids on that, and then Dreamland. Dreamland is a skate park that built Landers, skate park company that built Landers Skate Park, and I know, Mayor, you talked to Mark with that company and was pretty impressed with him and his crew, as we were. We've talked to them a little bit, and we've gotten a contract from them, which will be getting with our sponsor, 501c3, the Riverton Depot Foundation, and Alan Moore, and some consulting advice. I also want to get with Steve, too, with that, also with that contract. We've been making some posters, some stickers, and this is our new sign as to inform the community as to our status. As of now, liquidating our assets, we have $102,978. If you look at our budget in the next slide, it'll say that we have 110, but that would be gross. We do have some expenses out of that. We have a lot of sponsors on here. We forgot to put A.D. Martin, and we have since fixed that. So. These are questions, and we can answer these questions at the end. We're making this big sign. We want to put somewhere. We'd like to put it, of course, at Federal and Main. Maybe, say, on a Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, and then take it back down for this summer, or even just part of the summer, or at least at City Park somewhere. And the sign's going to look similar to this. It'll have the picture and everything. The background might be white, as to make it more simple, more easier to read. There'll be a little bit less wording than what these posters say. Okay. So if we pull all the sponsors, all the fundraising that we've done in 2013, 2014, we've done pretty good. We're almost halfway. We pretty much have enough to maybe do the first phase of the park if we phased it out. If you remember back when we were introducing how parks are built, A lot of communities throughout the nation do their parks in phases because it gets very difficult to raise so much money to do the parks. We would rather not do that, so I did this scenario, fundraising in 2 different phases, as copying from what Lander did with their fundraising, and trying to build off of that, and hopefully we can sustain this throughout 2015. You know, which brings me to asking the question, to give another 40,000. I mean, that's a lot. You already gave 1. And that's great. I'm really grateful. But to keep the ball rolling, we need more going. As we go back, see if I can go back to the budget highlights here. During 2014, 2015, we had got some big grants coming up that's going to put some icing on the cake, we hope. That's going to, since we have a lot of match funds, we can start really writing some of these big grants. That's coming up in November. There's one coming up in July, and we're working on those right now. There's a couple more in October that we need to apply for. So that's where we got the CWSA fundraising, you know, 50,000, 75,000. As we talk to Dreamland, they're telling us that when we get closer to construction, things really start to snowball. So we're hoping for that snowball to get bigger. We just want to revisit a little bit with the location advantages, disadvantages. We want to visit this because we got a lot of pledges out there of people wanting to give us some funding. But the first question that they say is, where are you going to build it? Well, where it's at now. I'm not touching that. They don't want to donate to that area, which is kind of a concern. We try to be as positive as we can with the location, but maybe we can visit this, talk about it, and look at the advantages and disadvantages of different locations. We got 3 here. I'm sure there's more. We got the current location, which if you look at the aerial view, it's the old swimming pool area. They're on the back corner of the city park. And by the way, that area is 30,000 square feet. We're looking to build a 12,000 square foot park.
Matt. Yeah, thank you.
Let's see, let's go back. I want to let Matt take over here.
Okay. Oh, you're the one in the way. I will say, backtrack a little bit about being positive about City Park. We have been. I will add though, we've been positive about a better future for City Park. We're advocates for believing that there's been a lot of things that we've tried. The city's tried. The Center of Hope is trying to create a better reputation. The skaters are trying to really improve the reputation of the park. But we feel, as an organization, I certainly personally feel, and I know Craig Blumenschein of the Parks and Trails Committee feels, that recreation is the missing gold nugget, whatever you'd call it, to draw families in, which would create a no tolerance kind of policy for the element that is there that we all know of. So yeah, I'll read a letter here. Craig Blumenschein of the Trails Committee wrote. He said, when the Riverton Parks and Trails Planning Committee asked its members what recreational assets each of us believe Riverton should have that it currently doesn't, like a dog park, a skate park, like a dog park, a skate park was a unanimous choice. It would be a wonderful asset for the community. The question of location, however, is not as clear. Lander has taken what appears to be a very successful approach by choosing to locate its skate park closer to its middle school rather than its city park. Some of our committee members, including me, have questioned whether City Park, with its current trouble with crime and its proximity due to one of the busiest intersections in the county, is the best place, best location for a park that will attract Riverton's young people. I personally do not feel that it should be a requirement to build a skate park in City Park in order to secure city support, especially since City Park and the Dreamland design provide no apparent fiscal advantage. My suggestion, which has not been considered by the Parks and Trails Planning Committee, is for the CWSA to make a formal recommendation to the Parks and Trails Planning Committee as to location within City Park, or with City Park and other parks considered, and have that included in the master plan that will be provided to the city later this year. Best regards, Craig Blumenshine, the chairman of the Parks and Trails Committee. Do you want to?
I think this is a great idea to have this committee involved. We want to be involved with the committee, and maybe we should consider that the committee talk about this. What concerns me is waiting for location as to when we write grants in the next few months. We definitely need really a hard, bona fide consensus on where we really want to build this park. You know, again, construction coming up, we do have enough money to start the first phase. It isn't a matter of if we're going to build the park. We can build the park with the funds that we have now. And of course, we're going to get more.
If can we go, is it back here like this? If you look at quickly at the design, this street, this is called street skateboarding, street section. It's mostly flat with a couple bermed up grass, where you berm the dirt up and pour the concrete on top of it, like Landers, if you've seen it. It's all mostly ground level, but anyway, you could build this section and then have it be, you know, we could build some wooden quarter pipes here to kind of, so all this that I'm circling would be the first phase, and then this would be the second phase.
The bowl area would be the second phase.
The open bowl here.
And we can always set the half pipe that we already have there until we build the bowl area. The concern I have is if we don't raise enough funds to build the whole park, the second phase might phase out.
Yeah, you already have a skate park, right?
So, so if I mark down some of the advantages, you know, we have the key car per se, as Councilman Richard Gard said, which I misspelled his name, by the way. Sorry about that, Richard Gard.
We couldn't afford to you.
But then, yeah, we have an area. We have an area that's designated already, and it's large enough for a lot of expansion. It's 30,000 square feet. But if you look at the cost of 30,000 square feet, you're looking at about $650,000 to $700,000 to actually do 30,000 square feet of park professionally. The foundation's solid, electricity is available, there's bathrooms there, there's parking. If you look at the disadvantages, you got the high crime area, the reputation is to the back corner there. Many parents claim that they won't drop their kids off there to play.
One thing on that, if you go to Lander, you see a big demographic of kids. I've noticed. You see a lot of mothers with their, you know, first grade, second graders there trying to teach them to ride. And I've spent a lot of time at City Park, and it's not nearly as common as you see in Lander. And you know, we encourage them to come because we know that it's not as bad as the reputation. We're battling a reputation more than we're battling the actual dangers of the skate park.
And we're optimistic. If you build something really nice there, it could change it. But when we move on to through the disadvantages, a lot of people don't even want to donate if they think we're building there. They just have that attitude. We're trying to change that. But it's getting tough. If we take a section of the swimming pool area and chop it out, and we put the professional looking skate park that's on the picture right in that area where we want to build it, and keep the rest of it around it, I don't think we're going to have enough money to develop the rest of it, even with a cap or another pad, and we put our old equipment next to it. It just isn't going to look as nice as to where the original design is built for berming up, grass around it, benches, whatever else that we want to put around it that's really nice.
And that's even if we can remove the concrete that's there. That was a concern previously by the previous city administrator.
Manager. You know, some of the disadvantages there, especially that in itself, trying to get it to look nice with the big area, we just may not have enough money to do that. So we're looking at possibly the tennis courts up closer to Federal. That's really eye-catching. That's up on, would that be the west side of the park?
Yeah, Napa Auto Parts would be right here. This is Main Street here. So it would be in this corner where the tennis courts facility is now.
It's a little bit more square, but I'm sure they'll accommodate 12,000 square feet apart.
It's also night and day difference in demolitioning. Demolition. Oh, I don't know.
Right, I think it's demolition. I think it'd be easier. Let's go to the advantages, Matt. Okay.
Thanks.
It's close to Federal, away from the band shell. We don't have that issue to deal with the band shell. Closing the park. We'll give the skate park a fresh start, maybe within City Park, maybe a new start with reputation, possibly. A fresh look overall to ease the negative opinions of a lot of people.
And Councilman Fabian said one time that curiosity alone can bring a lot of people to an area. And just something new, something nice. If we were to just build in the same spot we have now, it'd just be maybe a few shiny new ramps, and it's just the same old skate park. But this would be something all new, all together, to help with a clean slate.
Demolition work, I believe, would be easier. I think it's asphalt. Tennis court area, I think will be an optimal space for the design, and electricity is also available. So a couple of disadvantages: it takes away the resurfacing plans if you ever have any in the future, and then it might upset a few tennis players. But we did get a letter from Christy Lamb. You want to read that, man?
Sure. Before that, real quick, another disadvantage, Craig Blumenschein brought it up, is, and I don't know if we've had an accident with kids getting hit by cars coming to City Park for the skate park, being in that busy intersection. I don't know of any personally, but it is a concern if you think about it. A facility for kids and riding their bikes and to coming to City Park. Something to think about, especially if it's just right by the highway. So this is a letter from Christy Lamb. She's, if you know her, she's an avid tennis player, and she says, I'm an avid recreational tennis player and have been playing in Riverton for more than 12 years. The courts at City Park have never been in good condition in the time I have been here. Currently, they are unsafe and unsuitable for tennis. Our recreational group has not used them in a number of years. It is my understanding that the location and area currently occupied by the courts may accommodate and have advantages for an expanded skate park. As they are no longer an option for tennis, we would be happy for the space to be reproposed, reconstructed, and made suitable for use by another recreational group. So we don't want to offend or we don't want to impose on the tennis community.
And of course, we've been here before. J.C. Park looks like a pretty good area. Different areas within J.C. Park, close to the middle school.
Advantages to J.C. Park is it's away from City Park altogether, with the disadvantages that come along with both of those areas in City Park. It's close to the schools where it should be. It's pretty simply stated. I think if you look at, if an outsider from the community just looked at briefly at each park and looked at what's near those parks and the reputation of those parks, it might be a no-brainer to say that J.C. Park is the location for the skate park. Most successful skate parks are in very family-friendly areas, the ones that are most used, and they are mind went blank. Another advantage, majority of the community is in favor. We get nearly unanimous positive comments for having it in J.C. Park, and it's close to the other sports. It's nice in Lander. You have these baseball games, and the kids get done with baseball, and they come over and they watch the kids skateboarding, and it piques their interest, and the skate community grows. So at disadvantages, we would need to spend funds on a geographic survey, geotech report. I don't know the availability the city has for that. I don't know if it's been done at J.C. Park, but that's something we'd need to look into. May need to modify the design, considering where we would put it in J.C. Park, and the cost may increase because of that.
Well, that's pretty much basically it. Thanks for putting up with us. CWSA just wants the best for the skate park. We think being closer to Federal might be the optimal location there at City Park, if we can have the tennis court area. Of course, J.C. Park could be an optimal place too. Please consider adding more funding this second year, anything that you can give. The whole $40,000. Now, what do you think about the Federal and Maine putting our sign there once in a while, maybe on weekends? And thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay. Thank you. Does the council have any questions of the presenters? Yes, Councilman Gard.
I was the councilman that made the motion and made it contingent to its location. So you know how that works. If you don't build in City Park, you don't get the $40,000. And Mr. Blumenstein is a good friend of mine. I pay monthly to play at his place and enjoy that. But the reality of funding is when we pull that funding, we've even now taken that funding and pushed it into the next fiscal year. Am I correct about that, Mr. Weaver? And so the problem with that is, as we tighten our belt, which we've got to do, when we take it back off the table, there's no guarantee that we get the 40 back. It's back to a vote of the council. And so we could come back with go to J.C. Park and $10,000 from the council, or however that comes down. And so you need to be aware of that. Once again, I'm governed by the ability that I can measure space. That's what I do. When you look at the space of what tennis courts are, they're square. Your current park is rectangular, but they're just almost the exact square footage, which now miraculously is what you have is too big for what you want. And yet we take down the tennis courts and we put it right back into too big of location. Once again, too big to fail. And so, one of the reasons we keep getting negative comments, I don't know what people want us to do with City Park, should we plow it and raise corn is my initial thought and question. And my next thought is we've got to get people stimulated to use that park. And if it isn't you guys, we can't send the farmer's market in there. So, you know, I guess we could do hand-to-hand combat or something down there. I don't know what you suggest that we do. And my thought is I would like to praise the police chief, Councilman Fabian. I think we're doing a wonderful job. The Volunteers for America are helping us. I think the park's cleaning up. In the 4 years that I've been sitting in these chairs, we've made a lot of changes. And I think in your comments, you even said, you know, it's really not that bad.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, I agree with you. I've spent a lot of time there over the last 10 to 12 years, and I've seen major improvements in the last 2 or 3. So I agree. And the call box is a great addition.
Great idea. And so I guess we're moving forward, you know, it's like pushing a chain. And so we've got to keep pressure on that and trying to make it a better location. You know, when you mention crime, we really don't have a crime problem compared to the rest of the world. We have a loitering problem and a few things that we're working on, and we're trying our very best to help you there. So if you want us to reconsider that, I just caution you to the fact that when it comes back on the table, we may not get the same amount of money, and I will not, as a councilman, suggest that we spend the same $40,000 again there this year. We're extremely strapped this coming year for money. And so what we were hoping is that we could put this $40,000 out, and the rec board, I pushed that on the rec board also, and they put $30,000, and we were hoping that you'd go out and get matching funds, which gives us almost $150,000 of public funded dollars, and put it with the money that you could raise and move forward. And so I guess where I'm at is a little bit at a preponderance of you've gotten a lot of help from public funds, and yet we're still where we're at, and we're still debating where to put the park, and I think that has to be a negative when we're sitting here on television telling everybody that we have a crime problem and we don't want that location. And so we'll do what you want us to do, but I can't guarantee the same funding. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilman Guard. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Yes, Councilman Catan.
Just I'll tack on to Councilman Guard's comments. I mean, I for one don't like trading off one recreational activity for another. You know, you have a comment here from an individual that says that the tennis courts are unsafe and they're unusable. I personally know of several individuals that would like those repaired so that they can be used. And I think if they were, you know, able to be repaired, I think those tennis courts would be used. I guess a question, I wasn't here on the council when this started, but when the current location, was that a location that the skateboarders requested, or was that a location that said, oh, by the way, this is where it's going to be and you don't have a choice?
To the first comment about the tennis courts, I personally, well, I don't have statistics, but I personally don't see the tennis courts being used. I've seen them used once in probably 2 years, but I don't have the statistics there. But she did say they're and she's been the president of the tennis club. Most tennis players know. Fabian can vouch for this. He works with her. But I lost my train of thought. Nervous, sorry.
Question. Second question was, is this the area that's...
Yeah, how did it come to be, or that place was, I mean, was that an area that the city came up with and said, oh, by the way, if you're going to have a skate park, this is where it's got to be? Or was that an area that the association came forward and said, can we have that area as a skate park?
Sure, I can answer that. You know, in my mind, a lot of people who've been in Riverton for up to 30, 40 years have talked of City Park being this flourishing environment that had a public pool, had a public podium where the mayor would often speak, an active band shell, or in the middle of the park, and it really brought in a lot of people. It was a Little League field, is that right? And this was a place that it was the heart of the town, but that public pool lost its funding, what I understand, and maybe you can clarify, Councilman Guard, but it was later proposed, since the skateboarders and bikers didn't have a place legal to ride in the town, that they would be given that land. So it was nice to be able to use that land for something.
Yeah, the pool basically had a big leak in it, as I recall, and the city couldn't keep up with keeping the pool operational, and didn't want to spend the money on repairing it, and so
it was a great community effort.
We also created a new swimming pool in cooperation with the Joint Powers Board with the District 25, and so between the two of them, why that pool went away. So,
Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman Fabian.
I was going to go further into depth on this later during the roundtable, but I had the privilege of going with the Parks Committee and going and looking at all of the parks in this town in pretty good detail. And I actually, for the first time, I guess maybe with my mind's eye a little more open, got to go look at the current skate park, and it's actually, you know, there's a big portion of it that's gravel. I don't know if you've ever tried to ride a skateboard on gravel, but it isn't pretty. There's large concrete curbs in the midst of the riding surface. I mean, really, in the grand scheme of an area that's truly fit to ride a skateboard on, it's not. I don't think it's fit to rollerblade on. You might get away with a scooter on it. A bike's probably fine. I mean, that's the terrain that is actually there. Now, there are sections that certainly are rideable, but if you look at it on the whole, it certainly doesn't scream skate park to me. I don't disagree with Councilman Guard as far as size goes. I think I agree that the two spots are probably similar in size than it might first appear. But the other thing we got the chance to do was go walk through that tennis court, and I mean, yeah, it would be great to be able to resurface that, but in a council that's looking at a tight budget of not even being able to spring potentially another $40,000 for this project, I believe I've heard figures of $300,000 to fix. 380,000 just to fix
to replace it.
What's there. And so, I mean, there are heaves, literally. I don't think I'm exaggerating to say they're at least 2 inches, if not more. I mean, it's not a safe place to play tennis. One of the courts, the one on the very far end, might be a little more usable, but I mean, it's rough. And this is, you know, having just gone and walked through all of these areas and looked at it. So while I don't necessarily think the, you know, raise and start over approach is always the best, in this particular case, I don't see the likelihood of the city coming up with $400,000 to fix what's there in any time in the near future. And we've got a group that has really gone after funding in a big way that might truly be able to make better use of that area. We've talked about the need potentially for better or more parking in City Park, and Matt brought that idea before us, that area might be a lot more usable for that, and having looked at it closely, I would tend to agree with that thought. Thank you.
Any other comments? I would just have a question. There's been discussion about using Tonkin Stadium, the old Tonkin Stadium up there, as a dog run area, and I thought that would that not be a place that you could put your skate park in? That would give you, you've got 3 sides of a bowl already there, you know, and a person could ride right off of the sides of it, and I think that could be a pretty awesome thing. And you don't need that much area for a dog park, for God's sakes. There would even be room in there to have a skate park, to have your tennis courts, and to have a dog run. And it would, it's been surprising to me that District 25 has been as patient as it has been with the Tonkin Stadium and not being used by something. And that's a stadium that I've got, you know, warm memories of. It has locker rooms and everything associated with it that could be taken advantage of. You've got stadium bleachers there. You've got lights. I mean, and yet we still come back then, okay, would we be willing to move the money from City Park to somewhere else? Well, then you get into that argument again. I don't feel quite as I guess, strongly about the 40,000. I personally feel that we've committed that 40,000 to the skate park, and in my mind, that's pretty secure funding. I don't disagree that we are pretty tight at this time with all of the building projects that we've got going, and we've got a lot on our plate fiscally. So I think that an additional 40,000 is going to be a pretty tough sell, quite frankly. But I think the existing 40,000 that we have, I certainly feel a commitment to you folks for. And but I do think that it has strings attached to it to our city park, and I think that we are trying to do everything that we can to, you know, to change the name of the park and to make it the central crown jewel that it used to be, that you were describing. And I think that it has an opportunity to do that. But the more we talk about, you know, the amount of crime and the amount of problems and yada, 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 it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy almost. You know, in the Bible it says a man will declare a thing, and out of his mouth it shall be established unto him. And I think that's what we get. The more you talk about it, the more you get, and it just goes on and on. So, and yet it's a reality that we have to deal with.
And I apologize if I bring across that. It's just that as an association dealing with the young men and young women there on a constant basis and what they see and stuff.
We're well aware of that.
It just becomes, and even with the community, this is what I face with the community too, as far as donations and that.
I think you have to look a problem in the eye before it can really be solved. And these kids are looking it in the eye nonstop. A lot of them are there more than their house. Yeah. And
we were just thinking we could revisit this just a little bit and not to.
Sure.
You know.
Regarding the signage at the end of the road there, does the city have any policy in place for signage like that? I know every year we get groups that want to put signs up at the end, and we have tried to deal with it in the past. Do we have anything there? Mr. Weaver?
I just know on city property we don't allow any type of signage. We did do the exception of political signs in front of people's properties, but obviously the council could say for this area we can put a sign. I mean, if they wanted to do that. This
is, I guess, when you look at each one of these events that come up, they're all special, whether it's Rendezvous or Skate Park or Day in the Park, or I mean, each one of them in the minds of the people that are promoting them are special. And why can't you give us a special dispensation to allow this? And once you go down that road, there's no stopping it. But I do think that the city might want to put in place some kind of a policy to, if you touch enough bases, that otherwise you end up with garage sale, you know. And I've seen more garage sale signs up there than you can shake a stick at, and it just that's not what we want either. So,
Your Honor.
Yes.
For my opinion, I mean, I see a big difference between an event and a group that's actually trying to install a permanent fixture in our city park.
And that's the type of policy I'm talking about.
So, I mean, for my opinion, I I think, you know, putting a sign up there a few times, you know, for a few days a week, you know, as long as it's made sure that it's taken care of and it, you know, doesn't end up a ripped, tattered mess or something, then I would have no problem whatsoever with allowing the association to do that.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think this is a very worthy event, but I can tell you that internally at the staff level, it will create a lot of questions in a lot of people's minds. Why do you allow this person and you don't allow this person? And I see Ms. Lures back there nodding her head. So anyway, that's the
Your Honor.
thing. Yes, Councilman Guard.
What I was hoping to bring up was a unified sign size, similar to Landers, on a secured cable, and that organizations that came to us, the Rendezvous, they could fund that sign and make it really big, and make it so it was very secure, and it would be at the end of the city park, or the end of Main waiting, and we could even move it back into the park, because we've got some right-of-way problems with the state of Wyoming. That's their intersection. That's not ours. And so we may have to go back in the park. We also have a water ditch that's right there that's a problem. I think we're going to fix that when we go by, but it's a problem. But if we did something that was kind of nice, then we could actually say to people, you will have to, yes, we'd like you to advertise, but you'll have to buy this type of banner. It's this size. They cost this much money. They can be reusable year after year. We'll leave it up for a week. And then possibly, you know, that would be the responsibility of the city, I realize, to take that up and down. So it did look uniform, but it would give us a wonderful billboard, wonderful location to advertise what's happening, and you don't have to be right on Main Street to get people to know that something's happening. And I think it's something that we're really missing. Along with that, we argue about this quite often, but those are the only bathrooms that we have that are open to the public that can be used. And there ought to be a sign somewhere that you can read that those are public bathrooms and where they're located. You see that in all sorts of other cities, that there's public restrooms on this site, and they're in the northeast side of the property, and people could use those restrooms, and the city does a wonderful job of taking care of them. I've been there. And so I think those are a couple things that we could even do for the farmers market that would make a big difference. So thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation this evening. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Did you want to talk about that? Could we mention one more?
Certainly.
Well, the father in me, well, the skateboarder in me, the 14-year-old kid wants just some concrete. Just get me some concrete, man. I want to ride it. But the father in me and the community member in me wants to do this right. I mean, it's going to be the first skate parks that were built, some of them are still standing at 50 years. If you build these things right, they're here forever. And not forever, but a long time. And I want to have enough discussion, enough community. You know, the school board gave $30,000. They maybe need to be in on this discussion of where it's going to be.
You're talking to two of them that voted for it. And so, you know, you're right about that, but most of the money you have committed is public funds. And so $70,000, it would be wonderful if we could do that again. We're trying to give you some heads up. We don't have that money. And so we want to fund that. And it's been mentioned by other councilmen that there's other recreational sports besides skating. I was raised in Riverton, and skateboards there was such a thing when I was a kid, okay? And we did ride on gravel. It isn't easy to ride on gravel, okay? And so we want you to have the very best, and we understand we want it to be safe. And the reason, you know, I see pictures of guys jumping off the staircase of the RVA building, High Plains Power Building. Scare me to death, but the guys do it really quite well. And they land it and they skate away. And so, you know, a 4-inch lift on this property that we're talking about right now of concrete is only an advantage to most of you guys that skate. You can get around that quite easily. And so we want you to have a skate park. We're committed to it. And you can see that by the funds that have been committed to you. Absolutely. And so we're not, you know, you guys decide what you want. That master plan parks group, we want to hear from them. If we didn't, we wouldn't have put that together if we didn't want to hear from them. And if they want it someplace else, let's put it back on the table. I'm trying to give you some heads up that when it goes back on the table, it drops back into the pot of money that everybody's grabbing at. And so it maybe comes out at 20,000 instead of 40. And so that's just the heads up for you. And you don't have to feel like we're holding you anywhere you're at. We have control over both of those locations, City Park and JC Park. We'll put it where the public wants it.
I'd love to. I mean, I want to entertain the Tonkin Stadium idea. I think that's fun to think about, and but the dog park thing is being in motion. But I don't want to step on those toes. In fact, I'm in support of the dog park being there. But I wonder who would maintain that? Would that be up to the school board? That's, you know.
Excuse me, Your Honor. We don't have control of that. You're talking to the wrong panel.
Yeah.
We don't have control to tell you what we would do there. So you'd need to approach them, and then we would be glad to help you and throw our weight behind whatever you want to do there.
I don't know what to do.
Thank you.
It's my understanding, Mr. Weaver, that the third-party requests are coming up at next council meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, at our work session next week.
And that the recommendation is to be cutting most of their funding. Is that correct?
Yeah, from staff perspective, we're proposing 15% on all of them, reduction.
And so it's, you know, and these are good programs that we're just having to tighten our belt a little bit at this time. And so.
Well, I'm not disappointed in the money.
Yeah,
really.
We're optimistic. We're optimistic that you've given us enough match funds that we could raise quite a few funds. And with in-kind matches, we don't know what those are yet. When we get closer to construction, we'll get a more idea on the in-kind matches that we'll be able to put in some of these grants. It's really difficult. As we talk to Dreamland, there isn't going to be a whole lot of volunteer access to actually building the park. We can't really use volunteer labor as much as we like. Maybe when it comes to demolition, if the city can help us demo the area in question, then maybe that could be used for match funds too.
Sure.
Or as far as in-kind funds. So we're looking at all the in-kind matches that we can for grants and trying to match those funds also. And what we really would love to see is maybe a really good discussion on location. Where, you know, tennis courts, again, they're square, they may not be as rectangle, but they could be modified. The park can be modified to fit it.
Absolutely.
It could be an L shape. That's what one looks like, just like ours, but it's L shape and it's in Utah. We could look at that option if that's the best location. We would love to push the idea of putting it right there closer to Federal. We would love to push that idea if you can consider it. Maybe we might have some extra funds to even develop a cap for the swimming pool area to get all that gravel covered if we had extra funds in the future. When this thing starts to snowball, we might have those extra funds. We won't have enough. I don't think we'll have enough extra funds to develop 30,000 square feet. But, we're just looking at the best place. The reputation in the back corner just isn't what
and I don't think that the funding that we're talking about now is contingent that you have to use it there. I think the tennis courts is perfectly acceptable.
Well,
That's our plan A.
That's
You know,
our
that,
plan
I don't have any problem with that personally.
You know, if we could get to a situation to where we could have that, you know, can we do that there at the tennis courts? And then we can really move on with these grants and put it in the grants. This is the location. We're happy because we can get a fresh start of a reputation of a skate park and try to get out of that back corner.
I don't disagree with what Councilman Fabian was talking about, that when Mr. Eberkite was talking about refinishing the tennis courts there, it was going to cost well in excess of $300,000. And so.
And has that been voted down a few times, in fact?
No.
I don't think it's ever been voted up, let alone brought up, let alone voted down.
No one's had the courage to even bring it up.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I guess, I mean, what I'm sensing from you guys is you need to just be able to say it's definitely going where the tennis courts live right now, or it's definitely going somewhere else so that you can do your grants. Is that right?
Well, yeah, we're getting to that point.
So, I mean, I guess, Stephen, can you look into that matter and make sure there's nothing preventing that, you know, from occurring? And then, I mean, it sounds to me like the council doesn't have a problem with it being there, but I know at one point there was question as to how the tennis courts were originally built and whether grant funding was used that requires them to stay tennis courts or whatever, and I don't know if that's been looked at.
Your Honor, when we had that discussion about the tennis courts, that was the Taj Mahal option that we brought up. We also had the Bill Erbakite solution, which was to come in there and just do some cement work and patch over the top like he did previous. It lasted about 10 years.
Yeah, that was one of my terms.
Yeah, and it was a much cheaper option. So I think there are other options besides the $380,000 plus was the spongy type of material you put on there. It's like the stuff you'd see at Wimbledon. So I think there's
Wimbledon's grass.
Oh, grass. Sorry.
I thought it was.
You can tell I know a whole lot about tennis, huh?
I thought the issue was that the poles were bent, though. That the actual poles that the nets go on were bent, and that resetting some of that and whatever.
But when you look at City Park, there's the old baseball diamond. There's nothing there. We could put it in that corner. There's nothing in the north corner. We could put it in that corner. I mean, we don't have to take out tennis, and there will be people that said, you know, we won't sit here 2 years from now when the tennis court's ripped out and somebody will come in and say, what did you do with our tennis courts? You know, they were great tennis courts. I played on them every day. And so, you know, I realize that you don't want to be where the skate park's at, and your skate park is considerably smaller than what's there. And in our previous discussion with the farmers market, there's big gates there. We could pull those gates open and we could pull those big trucks in on these pads, and they could have a fabulous farmers market on top of this concrete. And little level changes, we could pour those out or blacktop them out and fix some of that stuff. It's not unusable. That's what we're trying to get back from that committee that the mayor set up to tell us, you know, let's use that for the farmers market, and let's put this elsewhere. And so.
And then maybe we should propose that we go to the committee and have them propose a best location for it. I mean, like I said from the beginning.
That's what I was trying to.
Again, if we wait for the master plan, when is that going to come? And when we got to write the grants.
The state one is October, right?
You know, yeah.
I guess the point I was trying to make, not that I'm wanting to tear up the tennis courts or anything, but I'm just wanting to try to make sure that we use that $40,000 in City Park. Yeah. And that was the point of the discussion, and I agree with Councilman Guard that should be plenty of room in there, you know, if you don't want to go through the demolition process to tear up all the cement where you're existing.
It would actually better fit the budget if we could start on fresh ground.
Right.
But if you bring up your own slide, just north of the tennis courts is, and I realize I'm not a beginner at this. I know why you want to move towards federal is because you want there's more traffic there. And what you do is showy, and you want to be seen.
That's good for the kids. That's the main reason.
I'm not disagreeing. They're not. I'm not disagreeing. And so let's bring it to the west side of the park. But if you'll get them to impose the park, the skate park, into the city park, you will be surprised how little space it takes. And it'll fit at the north end of the tennis courts, on the west side, all the way across there. It'll fit in front of the playground. There's all sorts of places to put that. And so we don't have to lose anything. We don't have to tear down anything to get anything. And Mr. Weaver's totally correct. Bill Urbakite, you can not like his solution, but it works. And we can put an 1.5-inch overlay on the tennis courts, and it's not Wimbledon, but you can play tennis there. And so I think if you take another look at that and get that committee, that's why we asked that committee. The mayor wanted information back from that committee to where that location.
Talking here?
No.
Yes.
That's to the east. Come to the north. Right there. There's all sorts of space right there. Your park will fit easily in that section. Jump the sidewalk that cuts the park in half. It would go in that front corner very easily also. And there's nothing there.
I would feel uncomfortable getting into that area, quite frankly. That is occupied mainly during our day in the park. And I don't know how a skate park right in the middle. I would, if you look to the east of the tennis courts, yeah, east. There you go, right in. Either there or in that corner.
Right there.
Baseball
Yeah.
diamond. Yeah, that'll work too. Actually,
That corner back in there would be, I would feel more comfortable with, but
I would lay you odds that your skate park would fit south of your current skate park and east of the playground. Not even on the baseball field. See the baseball fence where the trees are. So if you just go north of that, your new skate park would fit right there. There's only about 6 other spots.
And I think that's what we're really getting to, is that motion to get those ideas. What can we do? Can we move it from where it's at and within City Park?
Yeah. I think the answer is yes, you can. You need to go figure out which spot it is you want, and probably get with the Parks Committee as part of that, and work together and say, okay, we know what goes on in that park. We know we got Day in the Park in there. We know that there's other facilities that currently exist in there, and maybe the answer isn't to tear up the tennis courts. Maybe the answer is to build it right next to them. I don't know.
One thing that's interesting, you study skate parks, is that the most successful ones that have the least amount of crime within the skate park are ones that are away from a parking lot, because it encourages the kids to take a skate path, take their skateboard, take their bike, and get away from the parking lot, and they've got their skateboard. So the facility, it encourages them to use the facility for what it's used for. And that's one reason why I liked this. It was in the exact opposite end of the parking lot that's currently there. It's the tennis court area. Plus, there's trees planted everywhere. I don't know. When you see that, a lot of people upset about taking out trees.
okay, well, we need to be moving on, so.
Okay.
Thank you again for coming this evening and sharing your ideas. Okay, agenda item number 13, WHAM Convention Voting Delegates. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Every year, the WHAM asks us to vote on delegates and alternates, and it's got to come in front of the governing body. And so we got the WHAM convention coming up in June. The mayor's planning to attend. In the past, he's always been the delegate, voting delegate, but we need an alternate for that. And as of this point, the mayor and I are the only ones signed up to go to WHAM. So if we don't have another person there, then I guess they'll just have to do with a voting delegate. I didn't know if anybody else was planning to attend the WHAM convention. I believe the meeting is on, it's a Saturday morning, isn't it?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman Guard.
I think I can arrange my schedule to attend. I looked at that and I think I'm on another iPad, but I'll check that, but I will attend so that we have a full delegation.
Okay, good.
So I guess we just need a motion for the delegate and the alternate, and then.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion at this time for the delegate and the alternate for the WHAM convention.
Your Honor, do you want me to make a motion
If
so
you
that
would,
you and I
please.
can both go?
Yes.
I would make the motion that the mayor and Councilman Guard go to the WHAM convention and are the voting delegates and the alternate.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Councilman Guard. Okay, council committee reports and council members roundtable. Councilman Smith, would you lead off?
Sure. Just one item tonight, Your Honor. I did attend the Chamber of Commerce Board meeting on May 1st. Last month was a busy month for the Chamber. They had a successful Easter egg hunt and then an ag banquet. This month, upcoming on May 15th, is the social at the Hampton Inn and Suites from 5 to 9 p.m. So that's all I had for my report tonight.
All right. Thank you.
Jim will tell me later what I forgot.
We set up for 248 people, fed 246.
For the egg banquet. Yeah.
Wow. That was good turnout. Wow. Okay. Councilman Larson.
Your Honor, we all attended, you and I, attended this morning's meeting up at the CWC to listen to the meetings between the situations back east. And although it was very interesting, I didn't feel that it was the same situation that we have here. They had a checkerboard type of ownership where the county owned property, where the city owned property, where the tribes owned property within a jurisdictional boundary, and that isn't what we had. So although I was appreciative of the Eastern Arapaho and the Northern Arapaho and the Shoshones inviting us there, I'm still wondering what they want. I didn't get a clear understanding of let's sit down and discuss. Then the last thing was after was it Mayor Vincent that stood up and mentioned about the different agreements that had gone forth that the audience voted that they didn't know about. Then the lady from the Eastern Shoshone tribe stood up and said that they weren't worth the paper they were printed on because they were not acted upon by both tribes. So with that, I was kind of disgruntled and left. That's my report, sir.
Thank you, Councilman Larson. Yes, Councilman Fabian.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned earlier, I had the opportunity with the Parks and Trails Master Planning Committee to go and look at every single park in this town, and as a committee we walked through each of them in depth. We took pictures of all of the various facilities, be it the tennis courts, any basketball hoops, any playground equipment, pavilion type areas, barbecue grills. We inventoried in depth every park in the city, and it was rather enlightening. It's interesting because some of the parks that maybe don't have the greatest and newest equipment are heavily in use, while other parks that have some wonderful facilities, or at least when we were there, were somewhat vacant. It was brought to, it was asked of me to bring to this council whether, and actually to city staff, whether it might be possible for city staff, when they are at a park for some reason, at least periodically, if some sort of a census could be taken of what day it is, what time it is, and there's 15 people here or whatever, and if they really could go one more step to what types of activities maybe we're being engaged in. The Master Planning Committee felt like that information could be pretty valuable in helping determine, you know, what it is our parks get used for and to what degree, and that could give us a lot of direction in making recommendations to the city. So I don't know if that's something that could be looked at. I don't know, you know, obviously we're gonna have people out there mowing, probably already do pretty often. I don't know if that's something that could be reasonably added to that or whatever. It was asked that we bring that forward, so I don't know if that's a possibility. We also actually last evening went up and took a real close look at the Tonkin facility with an eye toward possibly a dog park area there, and I think at least got a good idea of the lay of the land and what we could do to at least get the bare bones in place to make it usable for that. Obviously, with the idea being that over time we could enhance and make it a much better park than what it would be at first, but at least make it usable. And honestly, it didn't seem that far out of reach at all to, you know, a little bit of fencing and a few things to get it really to a point where you could have a designated area that was suitable for large dogs and a different area that was suitable for small dogs to get things started. So I'm sure that will be pursued. It's my understanding that Craig Blumenschein is going to be trying to set up a meeting with Stephen, as well as is it Terry Schneider? Is that the super? Yeah, Terry Schneider, to have a look at that possibility and decide, you know, how Tonkin might be used maybe in that way. So that was interesting there. Hold on, it seems like I had something on the animal shelter. The big thing there, the plans for the animal shelter, they're doing their redneck barbecue again as part of the rendezvous festivities. It'll be at the back portion of the car and bike show up at CWC, and this is, I believe, their third consecutive year doing this. I should know this, my wife runs it, but and so they're in the process right now of finalizing plans, getting vendors for some of the things there, and of course soliciting the generous businesses around this town for their support, and are receiving a pretty good outpouring of that support, both in kind and monetary. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Councilman Christensen, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to give your report, please?
I have no report this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Canan.
Sir, I did attend the rec board meeting last night on the 5th. They did select their volunteer of the year, and they selected their business as the friend of recreation for the year. Those will be announced, and the awards will be given in June at the next school board meeting.
Okay.
That's all I have, sir.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Guard.
Your Honor, I've been involved in airport board meetings, task force, and you were there at the last one, and Steve, and the one prior to that. We've had those about every 2 weeks, and that's becoming clearer. We had a wonderful opportunity to have the managers of the Cody Airport come down and open our eyes a little bit to what we needed to be looking at. To be real truthful, it was more positive than negative. They don't fund their airport to the level that we do, and they fund it privately, and it takes more money than we spend. So, you know, don't get too excited. It takes more money, but less money from Cody and from Powell. And what it really boiled down to is that it has to get a group of involved citizens that are willing to fundraise and go out and make that happen. And it is a really viable option. The task force has thrown around the fact that the airport brings in a lot of dollars into Fremont County. We overstated that just a touch. The number is around $13 million annually that the airport does bring into the Fremont County area, county-wide. And I would like to be real positive about that. We're getting support from Du Bois. We're getting support from Shoshone. We're getting support from the tribes. Lander is heavily involved and pushing hard and trying to help. And so I think that there's a possibility. We have met with the Javiation and FAA, and we were hoping to put off the construction of our runway, lowering the runway. For one, that's going to cost the city about $400,000 out of the city budget this coming year. It's a $15 million budget to the airport, and so and what we are doing there is we're going to lower the west runway 10. We're going to lower it by 12 to 15 feet. And it's a lot of dirt, and so we're going to take that dirt, and Mr. Urbakite's idea, I believe, was to put that at the end of the cross runway, and there's a gulch there, and it will increase our ability to someday stretch out our crosswinds runway.
They're stockpiling it there, I believe they used the term.
That's the correct term, and they can't pay for that funding right now, and that's how government works, is that they always categorize everything, and yet it was the best idea to put that dirt in that hole. And so we had some hopes that we could postpone that, but they told us if we dropped off the queue, we would be at least 6 years back and maybe 10 before we would get any work done at the airport, including a resurfacing project. And so we are going to have to go ahead with that, lowering that runway, and it will come to a point in 2015 that the airport will be closed for a short period of time, but they're going to do their very best to make that as short as possible. And that of course affects what we're doing with the carriers, and we're trying to be as positive as we can on all sides of that to keep air travel viable in Fremont County. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. City Administrator's report, please.
Honor, I would like to applaud the airport task force. It's grown, I think, more than what we initially had, but you know, the meetings are very productive. People have a lot of passion. There's a lot of great ideas that come up, even though some of them once we find out the right answer, they're not an option, but I really applaud them for moving forward with that. This next Tuesdays are contract for services. We've invited all of them. I think as of right now, we only have 4. Well, we got 5 turned in their applications, so you'll get packets with what they've turned in, and you'll be able to review that, and then we'll give staff's recommendation of what those numbers should be. We'll also have the budget work session. Since we weren't able to work out another day during the week, will be the Tuesday, the May 27th, so that's the 4th Tuesday of the month will be the budget work session, and we can start that a little early if we need to, 6 or 6:30. And then I really don't see any issues, Councilman Fabian, on with the park. We have a lot of people in the parks. They could just carry a pad around and write down how many people are in the park and what equipment they're using. I think that's something that's doable, we can work on.
Thank you. Okay. That's a good idea. Thank you. Mayor's comments. I've attended the airport task force meeting as well, the one meeting that you were, and I was just really impressed with the quality of the discussion and the positive attitude towards everybody. Really enjoyed the presentation by the gentleman from the Cody airport. You can tell they had been through the fire and knew of what they were speaking, and that helps a lot. They had some printed material that they gave out to the task force members that had some excellent suggestions on it. And one of them, I recall, the airports, when you're dealing with them, don't take it personal, it's just business. And so that's the way the airlines are, you know, it's so it's going to be interesting, but I think it's going to come together. And I think all of our task force are just doing an excellent job out there. I also attended the meeting this morning with the Mount Pleasant folks. There was 5 of them that came. There was a mayor, an ex-mayor, a gentleman that worked for the Michigan state government, and then one that was a tribal attorney, and then a tribal member that was there. And so it was a good cross-section, and it was a good discussion, and I enjoyed it a lot. I agree with Councilman Larson that the issues that they're dealing with are significantly different than the issues that we are. They had their reservation line that goes right down through their town. I mean, it literally divided their town in half, and they only had one tribe that they were dealing with, which, you know, in our case, why this is what we're discussing is the boundary issue, and up there they both agreed on where the boundary was. That wasn't the point of contention. So I think until we can, at least in my mind, and I'm still struggling with it, until we can come up with where the boundaries are, once we determine that, then we can work out the relationship issues and the jurisdictional things. I don't see that as a I mean, it'll be a lot of heartburn associated with it, but it certainly won't be impossible. But where we're dealing with 2 tribes here that don't always see eye to eye on every subject, it compounds it, and then where we're not agreeing on where the boundary is at, and we don't agree with that, it's a whole different breed of cat that we're talking about. But it was very informative, and I enjoyed it a lot. Appreciate the folks that put it together and take it in the spirit in which it was given. So at any rate, ex-Mayor Vincent did give a presentation, and some of the information that he gave out isn't quite the way I remember all of it, but it was worthwhile as well. So at any rate, is there anything anyone else would like to add at this time? Okay, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.